Okay, everybody, good afternoon and welcome to the meeting of Perth and Kinross Licensing Committee. I'm Bailey Mike Williamson, the convener of the committee, and I'm joined by my vice convener, Councillor Ian McPherson. I'm also joined by other members of the committee alongside Moina McLaren, Deputy Clerk and Solicitor of the committee, Kirsten Molly, Clerk to the committee, Shona Meeke from the Licensing team. Can I ask the clerk to confirm any apologies received for today's meeting and confirm attendance of those in the chambers online?
Thanks, convener. This afternoon we have an apology from Councillor Carr. For members joining online, when I call out your name, could you please confirm that you're present? Do we have Councillor Frampton? Nope, I think she's just on her way. Do we have Councillor Harvey?
I am here.
Thank you. And Councillor Robertson? Okay, all other members are present in the chamber, convener.
Thank you. Can we now move on to paper 3, the minutes of the previous meeting? Could I ask if the minutes of the meeting of the Licensing Committee held on the 1st of July 2024 can be agreed? Thank you. Members, we're now moving on to paper 4, which is on page 9 onwards of your document pack. For this item of business, we are joined in the chambers by the applicants, Mr. Graham Fitzpatrick and Ms. Nicola Fu. We're also joined via the telephone by Elaine Melrose and Fran Donovan. Who are the objectors to the application? Further objections were received from John Eve, Judith Hughes and Sandra Seath, none of whom are present today. I'll now hand over to Moina McLaren, who will introduce a report and advise on the procedures for the hearing.
Hello. What we'll do today is this: at the objectors, as objectors, you'll speak first to your objections, what your objections are, and then the committee will have an opportunity to ask you questions about your objections. And then after you've had that opportunity, the applicants will speak and can respond, and they can explain, why they're looking for, to have a short-term let, respond to the objections. Then the applicants could be asked questions by the committee, and then you'd be given an opportunity as objectors to sum up, and then the applicants will have an opportunity to sum up. But there are a few points I'd like to make before we proceed. As a legal advisor, I'll be advising the committee on that actual issues relating to planning permission are not relevant to the committee's consideration. In terms of the legislation, the committee wouldn't be concerned with matters such as planning permission, changing the residential nature of the area, that kind of thing. And also with regard to sort of legalities such as joint ownership of property, i.e. whether it's access roads, maintenance of access roads is not something that the committee would, another matter that the committee would not be considering. That be a matter, that you want to seek your own legal advice about. So just to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I advise the objectors, Licensing Committee members have received and thoroughly reviewed a copy of all objections prior to the meeting. It is requested that you keep any explanation of your objection to no more than 10 minutes. Additional grounds of objection or representation should not be added at this time. Only the grounds of objection and representation included in your initial submission may be referenced. Could I therefore invite Elaine Melrose and Fran Donovan to provide details of their objection?
Hello, it's Fran Donovan that is speaking at the moment. Elaine Melrose is present in the room and we are on speakerphone. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify the points raised in our letter of objection, and just wanted to confirm that the issues raised are ongoing. The problems from this property stem from 4 factors: its situation, its size, access to the property and its high elevation, which allows noise to travel a considerable distance. As none of these features can change, the problems will persist regardless of any mitigation put in place. Taking these factors in turn, the situation of the property, it is within a residential area of the village where the houses are permanent homes. This area is somewhat secluded from the main part of the village. The size of the property, it is the largest property in the area and can attract big groups of both adults and children. Large groups mean multiple vehicles of varying sizes. I did in my submission put in access to this, but this is the first that we have been notified that access is not an issue that we are in fact allowed to include.
I would, however, say, this is Elaine Melrose speaking, that our concerns with access were not simply because it was a joint road, but it's a narrow road with multiple bends in it, which make it dangerous. And there have been accidents on the road, although not related to the property as such at present. There are also issues with the number of vehicles because of the lot of traffic up and down the road. Multiple cars, minibuses, delivery vans, and additional commercial vehicles reversing up and down the road at all times of the day.
There's a speed limit of 20 miles an hour throughout our village, which appears to be exceeded most of the time. The problem being that tourists in the main rarely know how to drive on our narrow roads. And this is a cause for concern, both in terms of the safety of children and elderly residents and of the wear and tear on the road of this unadopted road, which in our view is not designed for this level of traffic. The elevated position of this property, it sits higher than all the other properties. And as such, it has the effect that the lawn and patio are higher than any of the other properties, and this allows noise to travel a considerable distance. The noise, as our home is the adjacent property, we are greatly affected by this situation. The noise far exceeds the level experienced by any activities from other neighbours and their children or grandchildren. And excessive noise can be at any time, not just during antisocial hours. It happens most of the time, and often it's at times when we would like to be outside enjoying the good weather, but are actually forced back indoors because of this intolerable level of noise. The only reprieve for us is bad weather, though that doesn't solve the traffic problem. We do accept that people on holiday are relaxed and wish to enjoy themselves, but guests seem to have little thought for their neighbours. Children scream incessantly, and the adults speak excessively loudly to make themselves heard above the noise of the children. The use of foul language is often heard, and we have lost count of the number of times that we've actually had to ask guests to modify their language. We have experience of asking guests personally to be considerate regarding noise, and this has been shown to have no lasting effect. It is therefore extremely unlikely that putting this requirement into written house rules will have any prospect of success. These conditions are not conducive to life in a sleepy rural village, and they have a profound effect on our quality of life, our health and well-being, and represent a serious loss of amenity to us. We are elderly residents in an area of the village where houses are occupied by permanent residents. We moved to this area in our retirement because of the character and peaceful setting of this beautiful area. A major factor in this decision was that there were no rental properties in this area, this specific area of the village. Our lives have been completely disrupted since this family home has been turned into a business without any consultation with neighbours or assessment of potential problems, and is specifically against the conditions of the title deed. In fact, the opposite is the case. The owner informed us that they did not intend to let the property, except for allowing personal friends and family to use the property when they were not using it. The wider village has already had a large number of rental properties compared with permanent homes. We have not experienced with these issues with these properties and would question whether there was a requirement for any additional rental properties in this area. We should not have to put up with this level of disruption. It's not an unreasonable expectation to be able to feel safe and secure and to be able to enjoy the facilities of our home. That basically was my response, or our response, to our original letter of objection. May I add that we have had discussions with the owners regarding a number of issues. May I go on to talk about these issues?
Yes, certainly.
We have had a number of issues, discussed a number of issues with varying degrees of success. Problems of noise, etc., are often worse for shorter lets, for example, at the weekend. And the owners have agreed to stop these short lets. However, that will do nothing for the problems already described, with children and adults competing to be heard, and also the traffic problem from the predominantly longer lets. We've had less successful discussions regarding vehicles speeding up the road. The owners suggested that we and our neighbours could club together and put in speed bumps to solve a problem that is entirely created by their business. We have also been laughed at when we reported how alarmed we were to find guests prowling around our property in the middle of the night. The response when we reported a security light, which had been on for 48 hours and was shining into bedrooms, was that they would attend to it when they would be coming to the house in 10 days' time. These are totally inappropriate responses. We reluctantly agreed to switch the lights off, and during the next telephone contact that we had with them, it was suggested that now that we know how to get into the house, we would be able to go in and, for example, switch off the alarm if it went off again, as if we were to be used as unpaid caretakers. We have no local management arrangements and say they are only a phone call away. However, this doesn't lessen the impact of the situation that we are in the middle of, and we shouldn't be up against this disruption in the first instance. We've had guests using our newly constructed driveway as a turning circle, and people coming onto our property using our bins. We've only ever once had any kind of apology for these problems, and frankly, sorry for the inconvenience is really not quite adequate.
That's the basis of our complaints or issues. I've nothing further to add at this stage.
Okay, thank you, Elaine and Fran. Do members have any questions for Fran and Elaine Melrose? I'll start maybe my first question. You mentioned there you have no contact with any management within the place. Is that correct?
That is correct. I believe there might have been at some time, but that has not happened for some considerable time. And any time there has been a problem, we have just been asked to telephone or send an email and something will happen. And that something has been, as Fran has just described, that I was asked to go into the property and switch off this light, and that would mean that we can do anything else that was required.
Okay, thank you. Do members have any questions? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, convener. I've listened to your presentation there, and I can see that you're clearly upset. It also appears that you have a direct line to the owners. Are these the people that you contact directly? And is there a problem getting hold of them when you try to do that?
there have been occasions when it's been problem getting hold of them, and we don't always get an instant answer. I spent a week trying to get a response by email at one point, and eventually I sent a message via text or something like that, and eventually got a response, although not an immediate one. The problem is if you have an incident in the middle of the night, you're already anxious, and having to get a phone and phone somebody, it doesn't help the situation. It can be extremely alarming finding something going on in the middle of the night.
And my other point was, you said towards the end of your presentation there that you got an apology and sorry for any inconvenience, and you didn't think that was adequate. Can you tell me what you're expecting?
Well, I would expect that somebody would say, I'm really sorry that this has happened, etc., etc. But just a comment at the end of a text message to say sorry for your inconvenience is terribly kind of impersonal, and in any event, that's only on one occasion.
Thank you. Councillor Frampton, followed by Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. Given the level of disruption you state and antisocial behaviour you state is happening, have you ever logged any of this with the police?
No, we haven't.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, convener. Yeah, thank you, Ms Donovan, for your presentation. Just a quick question: geographically, how far are you from, or does your garden basically back on to the this property? Yes.
Yes, they are. They're fairly close.
There are
Fairly close. Immediate neighbours, then. Yes.
Immediate neighbours. Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Frampton.
Thank you for your answer about not calling the police. Can you tell us why you haven't called the police during any of these incidents?
Well, we didn't in the first instance even realise that was something that was something we could do. We don't have a police presence anywhere near our property, and the police, frankly, are extremely busy and have got a huge amount of work to do already, and bothering them with people having loud parties in the middle of the night just doesn't seem to be the most important thing for them to be dealing with.
Okay, thank you. There appears to be no further. Oh, sorry, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, convener. Sorry for the late request. Can I just clarify when you were talking about what you perceived as excessive noise, and did you have to challenge guests at this property?
Yes, we have on several occasions. The children run around screeching. Nobody ever tells them to stop. It goes on for hours at a time. And the adults are generally sitting outside drinking and conversing and having to shout at a level beyond.
Okay. Can I then follow on from that, please? And am I right in saying that you're saying that you contacted the owners and nothing was done about what you thought about was excessive noise? Is that right? You said it takes about a week for that to be communicated back to you.
No, that was one occasion when I was just trying to express that it is not always easy just to get hold of people. And that was one occasion that took that length of time. We have discussed the issue of this level of noise personally with the couple in our home. That we were discussing the problems.
Oh, thank you. That's clarified my thoughts. Thank you.
Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, hello, thank you. I wonder if you could just clarify the point in terms you say about these incidents of excessive noise. Are you able to sort of specify the sort of times that this happens? Is it mostly throughout the day, or is it in the evening, or does it carry on into the night? Thank you.
Yes, it can be at any time of the day. Sometimes in the morning, the children are outside playing and they go outside, and I use the word playing loosely. They are generally screeching, running around and screeching the whole time. It becomes really dreadful to listen to. The family may then leave the household for a time and come back, and it starts again in the evening. Sometimes there are no children there, and it's just adults talking excessively loudly, and it gets louder and louder as the evening goes on. And it can and has happened during the night. I have had to get up and get dressed and go up to the people because of the noise that has been made.
Are there any further questions? I've just got one further question. You said that you were highlighting that it took 10 days to respond to an email. Is that the exception, or is it, do the applicants respond quicker normally on average?
My feeling would be that they do respond quicker on average, and more recently we had used the telephone, mobile numbers and such like to contact them as required. I mean, we don't contact them on every occasion. We contact them when there's something specific to talk about.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, Billy Brock.
Hello there. I just want to ask another question here. You're saying you had to go to the house and speak to the people. What time of the day or evening was this at, and what was the response that you got at the time?
Do you mean the reference that I made to having to go in the middle of the night, or in general?
The one that you were talking about, that you'd went up to the house to speak to them?
It was at 2 o'clock in the morning. I did in fact get a positive response at that time, and the noise did cease. But you know, having to get up and get dressed and go up to somebody's house at 2 o'clock in the morning is a bit excessive.
Okay, as I say, there doesn't appear to be any further questions, so could there are no further questions, so therefore could I invite Mr. Fitzpatrick and Mrs. Fu to provide details of their application and respond to the objectors.
Thank you. We have a long history with the area and been staying there for many years. We bought Arte in 2017 and have been letting out our home since early 2018. We've carried out a number of improvements and modernisation works. Our home sleeps 10 with 5 bedrooms. The application we seek is as existing host for a 3-year period. Our target market is family holidaymakers. We are provided with details of guests in advance. We check for only adult bookings and contact them to establish the purpose of their visit. This is to help identify any possible staggered hen parties, which a booking site clearly states are not allowed. Guests receive advanced details of a secure key safe code to obtain entry. The keys are replaced on departure. Before guests arrive, my wife contacts them and emails a detailed guest guide and provides contact details should they have any questions at any time. My wife keeps in contact with guests during their stay. We have provided our contact details to the objectors and several other neighbours who have no objections. We fully respect the views of all neighbours and want to work together to address any areas of concern. We have held meetings to discuss concerns and welcome ongoing discussions. We visit Arte regularly to check the property and have ongoing maintenance carried out. In the past 12 months, we have been at Arte on over 70 days. Since buying Arte, we've got on very well with residents in Fernin, and we have been very respectful and supportive. We have engaged with and contributed to the community. We have had residents in Fernin book our house for friends and family. We also promote local businesses in our guest guide. Arte is our home, and we want to attract guests who enjoy all that the Highlands can offer and do so in a peaceful and responsible way. We do not want groups making excessive noise or disturbance. The type of guests we typically get and who we want to attract are families seeking quiet time in the Highlands. Bookings are managed and advertised through cottages.com, who provide regular best practice guides and video updates for owners. We have received the Customer's Choice Award for the past 3 years based on very high customer feedback. Myself and my wife and myself are the responsible managers of the property. We have a housekeeper who manages changeovers and routine safety checks. A gardener attends most weeks to carry out gardening and other checks outside of the house. In addition, we have a network of local tradespeople who carry out ongoing maintenance and emergency work, including electrics, plumbing, fire safety, security, building and joinery. We observe that the objections raised are similar in nature and appear to have taken a generic approach. Although some of the objections do not relate to the activity of a short-term let and are not for consideration by the committee, we wish to address the concerns from the objectors. The objections are quoted in the committee papers and I won't repeat them in full. I can respond to the objections as follows. The first objection relates to traffic. It is alleged there is disproportionate use of the road by RT guests and number of cars and other vehicles accessing the property. Traffic safety and noise issues are also alleged. In response, there is no disproportionate use of the road and any use is in keeping with the size of the house. We've carried out an analysis of guest usage and found that the average number of cars used by guests is 3. The occupancy rate has averaged 46% in the past 3 years. That is, for 54% of the time there are no guests. With a 46% occupancy rate and a similar number of cars for guests as a family in a 5-bedroom house, there is actually significant underuse of the road whilst the property is used as short-term let. Commercial recycling lorries visit no more frequently than other recycling lorries. PKC Commercial Waste Team has confirmed that all waste vehicles for RT are the same size as domestic vehicles and waste bins are collected during normal domestic bin collections. As a short-term let, we do not receive garden waste collection, whereas domestic properties do. In reality, therefore, we have less waste collections. Service providers attending are similar to all properties in Fernan, including gardeners, home deliveries, trades for maintenance and groceries, which we also use when we stay there. We receive little or no post at RT. We have put a notice in the guest guide about driving slowly and carefully and respecting neighbours' privacy. The drive and parking space at RT is exactly what was designed for such a size of family home and long before we purchased it. We have proposed paying for traffic calming measures such as speed bumps, but the objectors did not want this as they considered it would not assist. We are prepared to consider other possible measures such as a 10 mile per hour speed sign. In previous discussions with Fran and Elaine, they stated that one of the reasons the previous owner of our house sold the house was due to the speed with which people drive up the private road. This suggests that this issue is not caused by our home being used as a short-term let. The second objection relates to an alleged not contributing to share of common maintenance. In response, we have no issue with this and have never suggested otherwise. We are very happy to contribute to the grass cutting and have done previously. We will fully contribute our responsibility to any common works that are required at any time. We have never indicated otherwise. We have paid for a boundary wall repair at £7,000 in full and share the cost of tree cutting at £1,500. Also, when we are there in winter, we often clear the entire shared private drive with snow. Third objection relates to noise of guests holding evening parties or events in the garden. In response, we do ask all guests to fully respect the peacefulness of the area. We have put such a notice in our guest guide and signs in the garage and house. Our guest profile is multi-generational families wanting to enjoy the quiet Highlands. Guests are often in their 60s, 70s and 80s and occasionally in their 90s. 1/3 of our guests are children and infants. We request guests to respect neighbours and keep noise to a minimum. There is a balance to be struck. Previously, one of the objectors expressed dissatisfaction that a grandad was goo-gooing to his grandchild in the garden. We doubt we could or would ever want to prevent people from such reasonable behaviour. A further notice has been added to the guest guide to avoid disturbing neighbours, and we have asked for no noise outside after 10 p.m. We have removed light garden furniture and a barbecue to discourage use of the garden in the evening. The noise of guests at RT is similar to any normal large family in a 5-bedroom house. For much of the time, the property has no guests and no noise. One of the objectors suggested that noise levels were higher for guests who were only booked for a weekend. We have therefore changed bookings to a minimum of 5 days. We certainly don't want people using inappropriate language that can be overheard by others. When we have asked things of specific guests, they have always been responsive and courteous. The fourth area of objection is invasion of privacy by guests, which causes anxiety, guests seeking directions and searching for the key safe. In response, Arte has its own private plot of almost 1 acre and is very well secluded by trees and bushes on all sides. We have our own private drive and parking with turning area. Occasionally balls may have gone into the adjacent garden. We have added a note in the guest guide to not disturb neighbours and to always contact ourselves for any issues. We are aware of a recent incident of a guest using a drone. The guests were very apologetic and explained they were testing the drone for a planned photography trip whilst doing water sports the following day. The following day, the guest went to offer their apology to the neighbour. However, the guest advised that he said he didn't care and was extremely rude and wasn't interested, and the guest went back to the house. This isn't the first time that this particular neighbour was rude. We were having delivery of wooden storage units for our recycling bins, and my wife was assisting the driver. He spoke rudely to my wife in front of the driver, and my wife's friend had said, "If you shut up, you can go on with his job." He walked away and slammed his car door shut. The following day, he did come to the house to apologise for his behaviour. To address the drone issue, we have put a notice in the guest guide to not fly drones at or around the house. As regards seeking directions, guests normally contact us by phone if they're having any difficulty. We have now improved the directions to a property in the guest guide and included directional maps. The fifth area of objection is restricted covenant in the title deeds. In response, any such condition would have been drafted over 40 years ago and not have anticipated the increase in holiday lettings in Scotland. The property is used purely for residential purposes. It is not used for commercial purposes such as a workshop, offices, warehouse or retail outlet. We have not breached any related condition. The sixth area of objection is the location of the property not being suitable. In response, RT is perfectly suited to holidaymakers in the Fernan area, seeking a quiet, peaceful holiday, having its own private drive and grounds. Final area of objection is the size of RT attracts large groups and becomes a party house. In response, there are over 30 other short-term lets in Fernan, the majority of which already have licence granted. This includes 6 properties with 10 or more maximum occupancy. The guests we regularly have are the elderly themselves and seek a quiet, relaxing holiday. Multi-generation families use the property rather than young party groups. We have no desire for a home to be a party house, and their aim is to ensure there are no such groups. We are open to working with all neighbours to ensure everyone can have peaceful enjoyment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now open it up to questions. I do have one already for myself and also from Councillor Allen, but I'll ask mine first. It's about when people do have an issue, who are they aware of who to contact, and is that you? And if so, or do you have someone to manage the property more locally, so if issues do arise, they can be addressed locally?
My wife and myself, we provide our phone numbers for immediate contact, and if something needs attention to immediately, we have local people that we can arrange, but it could be a variety of things, maybe a trades that needs attention. Whatever the action is, we can arrange local attention.
Are these contact details shared with your neighbours so they can get in touch with people?
Yes, we provided our contact details soon after we bought the property back in 2017 to neighbours, and more recent neighbours 2 years ago. As soon as they arrived, my wife went and gave the details to Judith, one of the objectors, and her husband, and we provide details. We know quite a lot of people in Fernan who have not objected, and quite a number of people in the area have our contact details.
I have 2 questions from Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Camille. One of them's already been addressed. Just following on from the last point there, one of the objectors said it took you a week to respond to one of their concerns or one of their complaints. Can you address that for me, please?
Yeah, I have to admit that I was surprised by that, because normally we respond immediately. I think what that might relate to, my wife did change her email. She had problems with her email address, and we changed it. And I think that possibly was a reason for that, because normally it tends to be my wife that deals with most of the immediate responses. So I suspect that was the reason for that. That's very unusual.
I normally have my phone on late at night, so I'm not a very good sleeper. So I stay up till about 2 or 3 in the morning sometimes. So usually to get in touch with me is easier by phone. And I have had problem with my Hotmail account, so I've opened a new one. But I can provide that detail to them.
Okay, Councillor Braun, followed by Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. One of the points raised in the objections was finding the property and people knocking on people's doors to find the location. You mentioned that you've improved that, but I just wondered, could you explain what you've done to improve it? And secondly, is it as a norm for you to greet guests when they arrive, or do you just leave them to find the property on their own?
My wife phones the guests before they arrive, and we send them this book, detailed book to do with the property. That's emailed to them, and we contact them. There is also a covering note that goes with it, and we've recently added maps to show the road with directions. One thing that isn't in the objections that so the response was we switched the security lights off because it said some disturbance was caused by the light, and so when guests now arrive they arrive in the evening. In the winter months, it tends to be in the dark. So as I say, we've improved the directions, and the guests have our contact details before they arrive. So if they do get there and they're struggling to find the key safe, they can just phone us and we'll answer them at any time.
So I just wondered, do you have actually any sort of directions on the road itself, any signs up pointing this is the direction to this particular property?
The road that we're on is called Creagach. So there is a road sign which we have now put on the covering email with the map. So it's quite a sort of simple directional map, and it's at 3 different levels of detail as you get closer to the house. So they can see the Creagach. The road splits sort of lower and upper, and they just follow the upper road, and we're right at the end of the road. So in that respect, they just go to the end of the road and you're there.
Councillor McPherson, followed by Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. You mentioned that there are other neighbours who have not objected. I just wondered, could you give us just some idea of roughly how many that might be? Thank you.
The neighbour to our immediate left on the east side hasn't objected. The neighbour at the back, who's a farmer, who we've had access, we got on well with them, we had access to do a boundary wall repair, which we paid for, hasn't objected. The neighbour immediately to the front hasn't objected, where we have views to the Tay. So it's only the neighbour to the right, to the west, that's object in terms of immediate neighbours. So I don't know if that's that answer.
Okay, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. You made reference to asking people about noise, and you could see in the deputation today and the objection letters there was a lot of issues about noise, and you said yourself that you've got it in your book which you email out to customers. How do you actually manage noise other than just asking people?
We do ask people, and we have notices in the house, and we've been increasing the number of notices at the house and communication with them before they come. For an additional measure, we're always looking at new things to do, and one thing we're looking at is to put a video bell with sound, pick up the sound. We're just making sure that we don't breach any sort of personal security, if you like, or issues with that. But the checks that we've done with cottages.com and elsewhere, as long as we let people know that that exists, we don't at the moment think we'll have problems with that, and we can install that. And it means that we can hear it and contact guests immediately if they're making a noise outside after 10 PM or if we believe the noise is excessive.
Thank you. That sounds quite comprehensive. And could I follow on from what you're talking about? If you were saying you've been giving out phone numbers and contacts, and if you do get one of these smart doorbells and it's excessive noise, how would you plan to manage that situation?
As I understand the technology, we would hear it on our mobile phones, which we carry about with us 24/7. And we've got the contact details of every guest before they arrive, so we can immediately contact them. Every time we've contacted a guest for any issue, they've always been very responsive. And if the recent drone issue, they were highly apologetic for.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Convener. One of the respondents earlier on made mention of the fact that a security alarm had gone off and that they were requested to switch it off themselves. Can you tell me about that, please?
Yeah, sure. When we bought the house, there was a security alarm installed. I have to confess, I was surprised that it was there given the remote location. It's pretty low crime rate. We didn't realise it was activated. It was running, and so it did go off. Since then, we've completely disconnected it, and because that was a few years ago that happened, and our gardener went up, and there was apparently some dirt in getting the connections, and it set it off. So it's been completely switched off now.
Councillor Frampton.
Thank you. You said that you put many notices up around the house. Does one of the notices also point to residents staying indoors after 10 PM?
As for just general respect and noise levels, either inside or outside the house, we tend to find that when people are inside and if the doors are closed, we've been up there a number of times, going out, maybe taking the dog out for a walk in the evening, and still been lots of people in the house, and it's very difficult to hear anything. But we have asked people to respect the neighbours just generally, and it's a thing that we want to keep doing and reinforcing. We don't want to disturb Fran or Elaine, or indeed anybody in the area, and we certainly respect their views.
Could I come back with a further question? Essentially, I'm not sure you answered. Where do you actually live? Is it local to Loch Tay or?
Sorry, no, we don't. Currently, we're living in London, just south of London. That's where I work. I retire in December, and the plan is to move further north and spend a lot more time in Scotland. My wife's a consultant, so she in HR and manages helps manage the RT, and so she's flexible wherever she happens to be based. So yeah, a few months' time we'll be moving closer. Sorry.
We do have a friend that lives in Glasgow, and she can go up as well if there's any issues, and she's agreed to do that as well.
Sorry, it's usually me telling people to put the mics on. So if there was an issue, say tonight, you're in London, your friend's in Glasgow, who locally is there to deal with that issue so that it doesn't get out of hand? Whilst you say you can phone people up if they don't answer the phone or whatever, who's there local?
If the issue is noise, it's a case of phoning people, which we rarely get a phone call about this. Since 2018, we've been letting the place out and struggling to think. Haven't received a phone call about noise, but if we would just phone the people up straight away, because that's something you need to be active on immediately, which we would, and we would phone them and ask them be quiet immediately. If there was some other matter needing attention, we have had our gardener who also does other different jobs. He lives in Aberfeldy, and he's kindly agreed to do quite a few things in the past. It was him who went up and switched the alarm off, and he's done other things for us. Our changeover lady lives in Perth, and her team's round about, and they can attend to matters as well.
So in the event of emergency, you can't contact your friend, we can't contact you. Do the neighbours around the place or around your property have access to your gardener's telephone number for him to come round and deal with any issues if they may occur if you can't solve?
We would make contact with whoever needed to be contacted. We wouldn't. They could contact these people directly if they wanted to, but we wouldn't expect neighbours to have to go around trying to contact people. If they just contact us, we'll take care of things and make sure that things are attended to immediately.
Secondly, does the property have a games room at all?
Yes, there is a games room in the garage, which is at the far end of the house, well away from the neighbours. It looks over to the house on the property on the other side, which actually is just like a field that stores cars. There is a table tennis table and a pool table.
Are there any further questions? If there are no further questions, could I therefore invite Elaine Melrose and Fran Donovan to sum up, please?
That's actually quite a difficult thing to do, but I'll certainly try. I mean, it is quite encouraging to hear what Graham said. It's difficult to know how the arrangements can help matters. I mean, for example, asking what the group is there for, if it's a large group of adults, they can give one answer, and it may not actually describe completely what's going on. I mean, we have certainly had some quite strange groups of people, and part of their event, perhaps, if you want to put it that way, was it looked like a treasure hunt or something, and they were prowling around, looking around the area, into the gardens and things like that. All quite strange. Now, there may be completely innocent explanations for that, but when you have young men prowling around, you do get a little bit anxious, shall we say. But Graham has had discussions with us, has identified many of the things that he identified in his report, and we certainly do have the telephone number for his wife, and perhaps the one thing that we could take from that would be, should this situation continue and they continue to let their property, then we would perhaps make more use of that and let them know when problems are occurring, and it would therefore then let them see how frequently we are being disturbed. And indeed, if this smart doorbell helps to identify, then there would be the possibility.
Is that you finished?
Yes, I think so. I don't think there's anything else that we can say, because the points that we raised have all been answered according to what the other side of the coin is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could I therefore invite Mr. Fitzpatrick and Mrs. Fu to sum up, please?
Yeah, it's quite a mouthful. Well, we certainly welcome the contact from Fran and Elaine, indeed anybody else who wants to contact for us to act on any issues quickly. As advised in our detailed submission, we've already taken a number of actions which can be summarised as follows. We don't accept staggered hen parties or similar type bookings. We have confirmed that we will contribute to any common maintenance. We have put a notice in the guest guide to drive slowly and carefully on the road to the house. Notices have been put in the guest guide and in the house to respect neighbours' quiet enjoyment and keep noise levels low when outside in particular. We have instructed no excessive noise in the garden after 10 p.m. We have advised guests to not disturb neighbours and always contact ourselves for any issues. A notice has been placed in the guest guide and booking site not to fly drones around the house or near neighbours and residents in Fernan. We have removed garden furniture to discourage any noise in the garden. We have removed the barbecue to discourage any noise in the garden. We have stopped taking any weekend bookings as Fran and Elaine perceived that noise levels were higher for weekend short breaks. We took this action even though the view was anecdotal. We turned off security lights in the house and lights on the drive. As it was said, this was causing disturbance, although we do have safety concerns around the lack of lights as there is no street lighting at the house. We have improved the directions to the house, which are sent to all guests before arrival. And as we've discussed, we're actively considering further measures to include the installation of the video cameras and to pick up sound and check this remotely. We've complied with all the mandatory conditions for the licence, and we are fit and proper persons to be the holders of a licence. There have been no objections from Police Scotland, Scottish Fire and Rescue Services and PKC Planning Department have stated they have no objections to our application. The property is used by holidaymakers frequenting the Fernan and Ardtay is an ideal location. The Customer Choice Awards demonstrate how well the property is managed. We've taken a number of actions to address the objections raised and will continue to engage with all neighbours to address any issues and consider ongoing options. We request that licences be granted and thank you for your time.
May I just ask Shona a question about guidance for contacts, local contacts, or contacts regarding the management of the property? Does there need to be someone locally, or is that just advisory?
We did challenge, convener, the distance that the owners lived. We were provided information with regards to the housekeeper, her details, and the gardener. We actually have the housekeeper down as part of the day-to-day manager. Is that still the case? So that she lives in Perth, convener. So what we tend to do is we have a lot of absent landlords, and if they are, if there's some distance away, we would be looking for some sort of local contact that guests can approach from Perth to the likes of Aberfeldy is travelable in a short period of time. So that when we got that information back, that satisfied ourselves. We've also the gardener at Aberfeldy. That information was provided to us as well. The Glasgow, your friend at Glasgow, we're not aware of, but we had two local within a travelable distance that satisfied us with regards to the day-to-day management side. Convener.
Okay. Unfortunately, we can't get hold of Councillor Harvey, so my motion therefore is to approve the licence subject to the following condition. The licence holder must take reasonable steps to deal effectively with any disturbance or nuisance arising within or from the premises as soon as practicable after the licence holder is made aware of it, and the garden ground is not to be used by short-term guests for the purpose of social gatherings after 10 p.m. on each day. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the motion? Okay, therefore the grant licence has been granted subject to the conditions outlined. Thank you. Okay, members, we'll now moving on to paper 5, which is the grant of a short-term licence. Members, this application is page 29 onwards in your documentation pack. This item of business, we're joined in the chambers by the applicants, Mr. Ian Alexander and Mr. Keith Alexander. We're also joined in the chambers by objectors to the application, Mr. Douglas Wiseman and Michelle. Is Michelle and Ian Baker? Have I got this wrong? Okay. Michelle and Ian Barker. Further objections were received from Mr. Eddie Boyd, Miss Leslie Haywood and Mr. Robert Notker, none of whom are present today. I will now hand over to Mr. McLaren, who will introduce a report and advise on the procedures for the hearing.
What will happen in terms of the procedure is that the objectors will speak first to their application, and then the committee will ask questions of the objectors, and then as applicants will, you can respond to the objections, and you can give some further detail about why you're making the application, and then the committee could ask questions of yourself, and then the objectors, if you could sum up your position. Then as applicants, you give an opportunity to sum up your position. But before we start, I'd like to just stress that, in advising the committee in their decision, I would be advising them that issues such as planning permission are not relevant in terms of our considerations in terms of the Act. We wouldn't be required to consider planning applications or title deeds in the context of considering this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I please advise the objectors? The licensing committee members have received and fully reviewed a copy of all objections prior to the meeting. It is requested that you keep any explanation of your objection to no more than 10 minutes. Additional grounds of objection or representation should not be added at this time. Only the grounds of objection and representations included in your initial submission may be referenced. So could I please invite Mr. Wiseman to provide details of his objection? I do apologise.
My name is Douglas Wiseman. I'm the session clerk at Kinlow Parish Church. We have an interest in the property at number 1. My name is Douglas Wiseman. I'm the session clerk at Kinlow Parish Church. We have an interest in the property at number 1 Mount Tabor Avenue. Can I draw your attention firstly to ground 8, please? Ground 8 states, it's understood that if persons other than those identified on the notice as being the day-to-day managers were appointed as managers, then this would require a further correct application, so clarification as to the actual managers is necessary. It would be improper and unfair on your committee to the adjoining proprietors and the public to proceed with this application now, as it doesn't contain the essential information you are asking for. This means you do not have all the information to make a proper decision. And clearly, you cannot simply ignore that or turn a blind eye to it, that the fact that the application is fundamentally flawed. And consequently, the neighbours to the property and the public have been deprived of an essential piece of information. Quite understandably, you require disclosure of those who will have day-to-day management of the property. And in this case, in particular, as none of the applicants will be resident in the property when it is being let out commercially. If you've looked at this form for this application, it details 3 persons as having the day-to-day management. But we were informed by one of those 3 persons that the day-to-day management would be done by a separate third party. Your staff have confirmed that if the day-to-day managers are not those disclosed on the published form, then a correct application would need to be submitted and displayed so that the neighbours to the property and the public are able to see who will be the managers and can decide if they're happy with those managers. Your staff may also have views on whether they're happy to allow a particular company or an individual to manage any property. As you are acting in the public interest regarding this, if you do not know who truly will be the managers, not only are you, but also the neighbours to the property and the public have been deprived of correct information to enable you to make a fair and just decision, whether you're prepared to accept a particular manager. I say this because I recollect a council, I think it was Edinburgh, that had expressed real concern over particular property management companies' practices. So you need to be fully aware of the true managers. What also makes it impossible for you to deal with this application today is that even if the applicants were today to inform you who they will appoint as managers, you still couldn't decide in the application because the neighbours to the property, the public, and we as objectors have not had any opportunity to consider and identify the identity and reputation of these new managers. You rightly need to allow the neighbours to the property, the public, and us as objectors time to do this. And then you need to hear the public's views before making a final decision. That's why there has to be publication of the true details on any application as published. May I add that not only have the applicants not clarified or responded to the issues raised in our letter of objection, and specifically this particular ground of objection, but presumably both your committee and the council have not received clarification from the applicants either. But if you've got that clarification, and I haven't heard from the council to say that they have or haven't, the neighbours to the property, the public, and we and objectors have not been informed. So we must be allowed time to consider whether to insist on our several grounds of objection or not. Fine.
The information we have to hand is that the day-to-day managers are the applicants themselves. I think there was some reference to possibly the booking agent, Sykes. They deal with the bookings, but my understanding, unless it's changed, that the three gentlemen who are the applicants will be the day-to-day managers and will, if there's any concerns from guests, they will approach the day-to-day manager. The booking site is where I'm assuming Sykes is where you take the bookings, and they have Plano Park, which is a platform, a bit like Airbnb or cottages.com. But the day-to-day managers, from our information, is the three gentlemen named on the application.
Sorry, my mic's not on. Are you satisfied with that, Shona?
Yes, we don't have any other information to the contrary that it's not the three applicants. As per the public notice, it was completed with the day-to-day managers or agents' details if different to the applicant, and that hadn't been filled in because I think my colleague was satisfied that the gentlemen were the day-to-day managers convener.
Sorry, Mr. Wiseman, I just needed to get clarity on that point because I think we needed to get past that. Otherwise, we might have taken a different course. So would you like to continue, please?
I'm not sure that I understand yet. If what is being said is that there is a letting agent going to be instructed, so be it. The question is day-to-day managers. The letter of objection spells out what we were told. We were informed by in relation to the applicants that the house may be administered or let by A and B, then the management or letting the house by A or B and B could seriously be of concern. We've tried to ascertain from the applicants just what is happening. We've informed the applicant's intention is to let the house through sites, but that is contrary to what we were previously informed. When pressed as to whether the applicants will let the house through sites or whether that's simply a possibility, we received no clarification on this. So I'm not sure if there's going to be managers who are not resident, but someone else is going to manage it, which is what I understood their position to be, because they're not resident there. That's one thing, and that's why I'm saying it's the management issue, this issue, to start with. If management issue is irrelevant, then it seems to me that your your form is misleading, because clearly day-to-day management is an issue which you presumably you want to be ascertained. You need to know who is the day-to-day managers. Well, that's the dealing with that bit. The other grounds are spelt out. I'm happy to deal with any particular questions you've got in relation to that.
Convener, this is a secondary licence, so it's not home letting or sharing, so the applicants don't have to be in residence, if that clarifies matters.
Sorry, I understood that bit. I apologise. But what my point is that they're not resident within it. Therefore, they can't claim to be a day-to-day manager if they're not resident in it from that point of view.
I think, to be fair, we're kind of splitting hairs, because the day-to-day manager doesn't normally live within the property. They are either local or they appoint a management letting company. That's normally how it works. Okay, so whilst the people who are, or the applicants, will employ these people to look after the property on a day-to-day basis, if there are any issues within that property, what normally happens is the neighbours will get contact telephone numbers for the day-to-day managers who can investigate any issues, or the applicant will do that on their own behalf. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions for Mr. Wiseman? Mr. Wiseman, have you got anything additional to add? Or is that you?
I'm happy with that, along with the letter itself.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wiseman? There are no questions for Mr. Wiseman. Could I invite, is it Mrs. Barker, please, to provide details of her objection?
I'm Michelle Barker. I live at number 2 Corsey Drive, which is diagonally opposite the property we're talking about. Sorry. My property is directly across the road from the property that will be let out, and our bedroom is on the roadside of the property. Basically, my concern is noise. Potentially we'd be going from just a home to having 6 to 8 people arriving with varying frequency. And it's not your typical holiday destination, it's a quiet residential street. So, you wouldn't be expecting to have that. Basically, I'm suspecting that the people who will be be visiting will be people who are coming to see their family, possibly getting together as a group, maybe going to a wedding, special occasion in the town. And, you know, my concern is they'll be coming home late at night or possibly sitting out in the garden late at night, making a noise. There will be additional cars coming and going, car doors slamming. And, you know, with our bedroom being directly opposite, because I mean, obviously at the moment people live there and they come back from the town at night and you do hear them, but not sort of 6 to 8 people every night. You know, on occasions people go out and that's fair enough, it's normal. But this just seems to me like it's going to be a bit noisy. The other thing is security. I mean, obviously it's a large number of people coming into the area that are not there now. You know, the people who live on Corsey Drive and Mount Tabor Avenue, they know who lives there. You kind of know what's happening up there. And if there's lots of people coming and going, that changes the nature of the area. And I mean, I'm not against short-term lets particularly. We have one up there already, which is just 1 bedroom and the residents live on the property and there's no problem there. But I just feel that the number of people, the number of cars is just not suited to the street really. And to be honest, I've had no communication from the owners whatsoever about this. No one's broached the neighbours to speak to them about it, to explain what it might be like. So I'm only guessing, you know, I'm just sort of thinking about other short-term lets and how they are. And really that's my main objection. It's mainly the noise and to a lesser extent the security.
Thank you. Do members have any questions for Mrs. Barker?
Thank you. You said that there's been no contact from the applicants. Have you tried to make contact with them at any time to ask them anything of your concerns that you have?
Short-term let, and I would have thought that certainly if I wanted to have a short-term let, I would have gone to my neighbours and sat and discussed it with them and, you know, got a feeling for what people were thinking. You know, I didn't, apart from anything else, I don't know where they live, so.
We've got it, we're there. Thanks, convener. Thank you for your deputation. You mentioned parking. Has, I would assume, have a driveway to take, would have a driveway for the house. Yeah, so that would take a number of cars. And obviously that they may end up having cars parked in the road, but there would be likely to be you know, people would park sensibly away from corners is what I'm trying to say. So they would park away from corners. So you may get 2 or 3 cars on the driveway. I don't know. Sorry, hang on.
Sorry. Right. You can't rely on people parking sensibly. The bit outside our house, there's a place where people park quite often if they're having work done in their drive or something, they'll come and park there, and they park very near the entrance to our house, and often you can't get in. So I wouldn't rely on people parking sensibly.
Unfortunately, we can only use one mic at a time. It can get a bit frustrating sometimes. Councillor Brown, if you've completed your question. I have. Councillor Carthy's withdrawn his question. Do you mention there that there is street parking on your street? Is that correct? They do park. There's no WL lines on Corsey Drive or Mount. Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for Mrs. Barker? There are no further questions from Mrs. Barker. Could I invite Mr. Alexander and Mr. Keith Alexander to provide details of their application and respond to the objections?
Yeah. I'm Ian Alexander. I've actually got both my brothers with me, so this is Keith and Scott. We're the 3 applicants. And the reason for our application has been, this has been our family home for almost 50 years. It was previously our parents' home, and we grew up there, and we want to keep this house in our family. We have a lot of memories there, and the only way we can afford to do that now that our parents have sadly passed is to let it out. We're conscious that neighbours might have issues, and any ones that came and spoke to us, we explained the position to them, and the more direct ones, which includes the Mans, which we did. I spoke to or contacted Douglas about, but he didn't seem to take on board the comments that I made. But you know, and there seems to have been some confusion over who the applicants are. I think this was through speaking to my brother's wife and her mentioning an Airbnb, which wasn't our intention. And we clarified that we had been looking at sites, but until we get a license, we can't appoint anyone. And I understand that it doesn't actually matter who we appoint as a letting agent. So we have made the application. We're not out to make every single penny out of this property that we can. We are going to take into account our neighbours' feelings. The neighbour on the other side we spoke to, and he fully appreciated the position. We explained that, you know, we're not going to allow stag and hen parties. You know, that seemed to be the general consensus, that was what it was going to be. I'm not quite sure what they thought of us as neighbours, that we would actually do that to them. We know a lot of the neighbours. We're probably, I think we are the longest residents in the whole street. So we're not out to annoy our neighbours. We want to take their feelings into account. And so we are very much want to make sure that they are happy with the position. We're happy to say that there'll be no outdoor noise after 10 o'clock at night. As far as parking is concerned, we've got probably one of the largest drives in the street as well. You know, we as a family use the house. There's sometimes way more than the 9 people that we've said is the maximum that we're going to allow in the property, because we're not necessarily using all the rooms. We're not going to rent out or allow all the rooms to be used. One we want to keep back for ourselves, just to store stuff. So that when we're there, I think, you know, it's only perhaps our drive can accommodate 4 or 5 cars plus one out on the grass area outside. And so I think even when there's been 13 or 14 of us there, there's only ever been maybe 1 car that's actually parked out in the street, and certainly not anywhere near the junction or causing any of our neighbours any obstruction. I'm not sure whether my brothers have anything else to add to the application. Sure.
Yes, I'm Scott. I'm the eldest of the 3 brothers. I can just reiterate what Ian has said. We've got no intention to turn this into a cash cow. We just want to keep it as a family home. We do all regularly meet up there. We use it as a central point, mainly because our mum was still in a home up until the middle of last year. So I live down in England at the moment. My son lives up in the north of Scotland. So we quite often use it, probably Christmas, Easter, summer, October, which we want to continue doing. So we're not certainly wanting the house to become a party house. We don't want it becoming, you know, a bad name with the neighbours. Parking wise, yes, the drive can hold at least 5 cars, with one on the concrete pad outside before you get to the road. With certainly other parking out there, which our neighbours do use. They use it more often than we do, because we've got a larger parking space. So I don't think that will be an issue. The most common place for people to congregate would be around the back of the house, which overlooks houses who have obviously not got any objection. Certainly wouldn't be projecting any noise out the front. The only time there's people out the front is generally if my grandkids or with 2 nieces are out there who range in age between 4 and 9. They might be out there kicking a football or running about. If we have had parties, which, as Ian has stated, we've probably had more than 15 there, but immediate family, we're looking at 14 to 15. More than that, nobody's ever objected. We've never had anybody come around and complain about the noise we've been making. So I don't think we wouldn't certainly want to cause any problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions for the applicants? Councillor Braun.
Oh, well, thank you, convener. Two follow-ups really. One thing you mentioned, you haven't appointed a letting agent yet. because you're waiting obviously for the license. So my question is, will you be making it quite clear your requirements? There'll be no stag parties, no hen parties, whatever. And the other factor was, once you get the license, if it comes, will you be advising people of your contact details so they can get in touch with you if there are problems at any time?
The answer to both those questions is yes. We will certainly make, in fact, our immediate neighbours already have our contact details. And we'll certainly no problem about passing those on to, and by immediate I mean on the boundary, bounding our property. The ones across the road, then our street is quite a wide street, so it's not as if they're like that close to us. So so any noise that was travelling would have to be excessive noise. I would have thought to travel that far be an issue, but again, we don't want there to be that noise in the first place. So we obviously want to make sure that nobody has any concerns, and we wouldn't have thought that the property would be used for or be any noisier than when we're there. And as my brother said, that's never been an issue.
So I mean, acoustically, Perth being in a valley, a lot of the noise comes up from the town. So over this past weekend, there's been a lot of noise coming up from the town with the show and with the salute yesterday. There's been a lot of police activity this weekend, or sirens. I don't know if something's been going on, but there's a lot of noise comes up from the town. So we can't guarantee there won't be any noise, but how it reflects, I can't say it's going to be any worse than what's coming from the town on a normal night, cars revving and motorbikes. So yes, we're not going to let that happen. I mean, if it does, yeah.
Just one other point, and I know one of you, I don't know which one of you is going to be the managing side of it, but one of the comments makes is that whichever one of you is the manager is in full-time occupation. So my question is, how quickly can you respond to problems that may occur and solve the problems?
I suppose it'll very much depend on the problem. My younger brother lives in Perth. He is only 5 minutes really away from his house is only 5 minutes away from the property that we're applying for the license for. I live in Rosyth. I work in Edinburgh. I work part-time. So again, it really 4 days a week, but it will very much depend on when and what and why. If it's Keith works in Perth as well, so if it's something that could be dealt with by telephone, then all three of us are available. At the moment, things tend to get left up to me to do. So I may be the central point but I will, perhaps not be able to rely on my older brother if he's down in England to deal with things. But between myself and Keith, I'm sure that we will be able to deal with any issues that arise.
So, I would like to read that just because I'm down in England doesn't mean I won't be contactable. And I mean, once obviously we've got this, should we be allowed the license, and we've set up a network of us, like a housekeeper, gardener, whatever, handyman, then we'll be able to contact them. We haven't really looked at that because we thought we'll wait and see how we get on. And of course, we're not looking to suddenly start leasing next week. Should we get the license, it's an ongoing process. Sorry.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, convener, and thank you for your deputation. It seems on the face of it that it's quite a responsible application, and you're saying the things that I think people would want to hear. One of the things that was said by one of the objectors is that you didn't actually approach them. And I'm just wondering why you wouldn't approach everybody and expect them to approach you when you're the ones making the application.
I suppose part of it was the ones that were more directly than I did. The ones that were across the street, then I wasn't necessarily thinking that there would be an issue because they're not an adjoining property. The distance between our house, our front door, and their front door. I know where I stay. That would be about 3 or 4 houses away. So I hadn't really sort of thought to do that. So maybe that was my bad. Maybe I should have done that. But I hadn't necessarily thought to do that. I thought if they had any objections, like one of the neighbours did, they came and spoke to us, and we discussed it, and they were absolutely fine with the responses that we gave.
Okay, are there any further questions? If there are no further questions, could I invite Mr. Wiseman to sum up, please?
I don't think there's been any suggestion that the three individual brothers have got any axe to grind against the other proprietors. And if that's what is thought, that is not what we, or at least I certainly don't take that view. But the position still remains that you have three brothers, none of which is going to be resident within the premises, and who have said, as stated in these communications, the letter of objection, what they said their position to be, and what is being said now is, we will do this, we will do that, we will do the next thing. If they are going to have managers, and as I understood it, that is what I think they seem to be saying, then we haven't got details of who these managers are. And if it happens to be a property management company, which we know something about, or you know something about, you might have a view in them. The other grounds are spelt out there. You can see them all, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is the amplification of 8. We have still, and we did ask, are they going to employ this or that? We've had no response. I don't know if you've had a response, but if you've had it, we haven't been told it by you. Thank you.
Shona?
Convener, if the gentlemen who are named as the managers decide to appoint a property management, they would need to come back to us for a managerial change in circumstances, and that agency would be checked out. There's no reason for us to for another public notice to be displayed, which has the details of the day-to-day management and addresses. That's legally posted as part of the application process to say there's a short-term licence, but that's not required for the material change.
Mr. Wiseman, are you finished with your summing up?
Yes, thank you.
Mrs. Barker, would you like to sum up, please?
As far as I'm concerned, it's the noise issue that's the main issue. Got lots more to say, really. I've said it all already.
Thank you. Could I invite Mr. Alexanders to sum up, please?
I think all I really want to say is that, we want to be as respectful as we can to our neighbours. There still seems to be some confusion over whether we've got a management agent or going to appoint a letting agent. It's very much the latter. It's going to be a letting agent, not a management agent. So I think that's been one of the main points that has been raised here. And that letting agent we've still to appoint, because we couldn't do anything until we get a licence. So that's why we've not been able to clarify, because until we get the licence, we can't make a decision on that. But we certainly want to be responsible in our management of the property, and respectful, because we want to keep in with our neighbours. We don't want to annoy them. They are still our neighbours. So we are going to be as respectful as we possibly can be. Thank you.
Okay. Members, do you wish to adjourn for further discussion? Yes. Thank you. My motion is to grant, subject to the following conditions. The licence holder must take the reasonable steps to deal effectively with any disturbance or nuisance arising within or from the premises as soon as practicable after the licence holder is made aware of it, and the garden grounds are not to be used by short-term let guests for the purpose of social gatherings after 10 p.m. on each day. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the motion? If there are no amendments to the motion, the licence has been accepted. Application has been accepted subject to the conditions. Thank you. Thank you. Members, that brings us to the end of the business on the agenda. Can I thank everybody for your attendance today and formally close the meeting? Thank you.